Next, we have Zendaya. It's actually a very similar shot from Dune Part 1. This looks like this similar corridor within the rocky outcroppings on Arrakis that we saw before, but this definitely looks like an actual structure. They're within the siege, it looks like. We see some markings on this little frame of the door here. So I'm really excited to see the actual Fremen society, civilization. And just to reiterate, Denis Villeneuve did say that they didn't use anything from Dune Part 1 in this. This is all new sets, all new locations, everything's brand new. So we did actually see a lot of shots from the previous film, more for like visions, I think, of the Fremen. Keep that in mind. All the things we're going to see is just brand new. So nothing will be used in the previous film. There's going to be a lot of questions probably of like, how is Zendaya's Chani going to be portrayed in the latter half of this story? In Zendaya's interview with Vanity Fair, most of what her part of this interview was about the relationship between Paul and Chani. So, in speaking about that, Zendaya says, it was funny trying to figure out in this futuristic space talk, how do they flirt? What does that look like for a space warrior and the young duke of a planet? How do they show that they like each other? What does that even sound like? We were definitely trying to navigate that, which was funny because all of us were stumped. I think it's just as foreign to us as it probably is to the characters. So that's kind of her thought process. So again, their relationship, their growing romance is going to be center stage as far as their interactions between each other. That's how she's approaching the character. It is a very interesting situation. She's trying to make sense of this herself as an actress approaching this role, but even within the source material itself, it's very unusual, their relationship, because Paul already knows her so well. He's had conversations with her and so many visions and has seen his life with Chani before he even met her. I think that's actually a natural way to approach it, because obviously it sounds unusual for you as an actress approaching it. I mean, I think that fits quite well with someone who's even in that situation. It's unusual. So that probably helped in her portrayal. She continues in her interview, the solution, she says, was another hallmark of true love. Clumsiness. Awkward and uncomfortable, there's all those things. But her hard-fighting desert survivor, a woman who is a literal dream woman to Chalamet's character, seemed almost too competent. I was like, does Chani get awkward? Does that happen to her? Does she know what that feels like? Director Denis Villeneuve, in regards to this love story, he did say that this was like a war epic action movie, but that he had to be careful to let the love story not be overwhelmed. To quote him, he said, I wanted to make a very human movie, very close to the characters despite the scope of the film. I kept saying to my crew, the most important thing is that spark, that relationship between both of these characters. If we don't capture that, if we don't have that on screen, there's no movie. The epicenter of the story is this relationship. People could have been kind of getting concerned, or is this just going to be battle upon battle? It's just this all knife scenes and fights in the desert, and in keeping with the spirit of the novel, this is very character driven. So I'm glad to hear that while this is going to be this epic action movie, I'm glad that there's going to be this balance of not letting those huge action set pieces drown out the drive of the story, which is the characters and their relationships between each other. The relationship between Paul and Chani, that's very important to Paul's arc, especially going forward. So it's nice that they're going to keep that in the forefront of their minds as they made this movie. Next was Timothee Chalamet's remarks in regards to this relationship and Chani. The universe of Dune is a complex world of geopolitics and with tons of ecological and technological metaphors that hold up today. But at the center, there's this relationship where Chani sort of becomes a moral compass. Otherwise, the messianic prophecy that looms around his hero would feel abstract. Even to say that out loud feels kind of huge, and she's really the humanizing, grounding force to that. That's a really good insight there. I think he's got a good grasp on her role in this story. The actor really seems to understand the character and their relationships too. That's good to know. Zendaya again says, I think something we can all relate to is just love. These characters literally live on another planet, right? They're aliens. It was interesting finding these tender moments in such turmoil and chaos. These characters are just young people forced into really, really intense circumstances. There is this love, this relationship between these two, but the grand scale, this terrible destiny is inevitable, and just these simple pleasures and simple things are really crucial to Paul's character and grounding him to not get lost into that perspective where he's just looking at events from the outside instead of living in it. They next go into how they shot a lot of their scenes on Arrakis, and they said that one part of creating this kind of magical, romantic, intimate scenes was shooting during the magic hour, or I've heard some people call golden hour, the phrase that filmmakers use for that brief window when the sun is setting and the world is bathed in gold. And the film was shot in remote desert locations in Jordan, so the pressure was often on Zendaya and Chalamet to capture their romantic scenes in a hurry. So they'd have this small window of time when the lighting was just perfect to really capture the beauty of the moment. So it was kind of a ticking timer for them. So in regards to that, Zendaya says that you kind of feel like we got here, but we have an hour to get this scene right. So we revisited a bit every day, and over a few days, that gives us a few hours. So every time they had to revisit a scene, they got to sleep on it, think about it, and come up with a new set of ideas that allowed them to reapproach the scene and maybe with greater insight. And as they worked together more, obviously they would have more of a connection that would be kind of displayed on screen. Villeneuve goes on to credit Chalamet and Zendaya. In regards to Zendaya, he says that she is a fierce warrior who has a very strong opinion about her world, about the politics of this world, about the religions, and all the impact of colonization on their culture. But there's something about that young man that cracks her heart, and Timothee did a beautiful job to bring that sincerity on screen. Obviously, we didn't get a lot from Zendaya's Chani, mostly in visions, which went well with the story. But now it will be interesting to see. She has to develop this deep relationship in the latter half of this story. But it's kind of interesting because from Paul's perspective, he already knows her. So we'll get to see more of this kind of growing relationship, but it will be more from Chani's side. So it's going to be a very unique situation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.